The Nintendo 64 released in North America in September of 29th, 1996, which is making it 28 years old. And I wanted to kind of think back on my memories on the Nintendo 64, but also share some interesting facts that I think are unique that I don't hear that often on the internet.
It's me, Mario! Hello!
Some of my favorite memories of the Nintendo 64, because I didn't get one till later on in life, is going over to friends' houses and exploring different titles like Mario 64, Yoshi Story, Mario Kart. Mario Kart completely blew people away. It wasn't even the first one, but it's the one everyone thinks of when they think of Mario Kart. And I just remember local couch co-op and sleepovers and staying up late. And if you were playing games like Mario 64, you would pass the controller, you would have a set amount of time, or helping each other discover different secrets, because things weren't as readily available. If you didn't have the player guide, the internet wasn't quite there yet, and so you really had to figure it out on your own. And so sometimes working together was the way to get through it. And back to the whole player's guide things, those were awesome. I loved seeing all of the different pictures, little notes in there. I really miss that time period of being in person, having books, not having something just so readily available to make it so easy to just look it up. I mean, it's so hard to play a game and get stuck and not just be tempted to look it up on YouTube. And so those days were really special. And then Nintendo 64 had a lot of charm. It had great music. The controller, although a lot of people thought it was weird, it's one of my favorite controllers to play with. The argument being, oh, if you don't know how to hold it, well, it depended on the game you were playing. If you were playing just a traditional game, you held it like this. In some of the Pokemon Stadium games I mentioned, you hold it on the sides. It just depends. And I think a lot of people missed out on a really good console if the controller is what deterred them. So, to the fun facts, the console started development in 1993 under Project Reality was the code name, and they were working with Silicon Graphics, which they're the ones that worked on like Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, and notoriously, they have been known to almost sell this information or their product to Sega, and unfortunately, though, they were too far into development, and by unfortunately, I mean unfortunate for them because the Sega Saturn totally crapped the bed. The Nintendo 64 was released in the midst of the console wars, admittedly self-made enemy, PlayStation, as a result of the failure of the Super Nintendo PlayStation merger, and then the Sega Saturn, which I think was kind of a failure. Another one, this one might be a little bit more well-known, but I didn't. Tony Hawk 3 was the last game to be developed for the Nintendo 64 before they stopped production all the way in 2003, which maybe that lifespan isn't incredibly long, but I feel like for the console and what we got, I feel like that was a pretty long span of time. This one I'm surprised I've never heard of because I'm actually a big nerd when it comes to learning different random game facts, but apparently some scientists used Mario 64 in a study where they had adults play Mario 64 for 30 minutes every day for 2 months, and then they did an MRI on the brain to see if it did anything to it, and what it did is it increased the gray matter, so it was proving that playing video games was actually changing the volume of the brain, which I thought was extremely fascinating. Some games I think are still fun in 2024, which if you follow my channel at all, my very first video was about games that were still fun to play back when I made that video. But Paper Mario, I think, has a really amazing story. It's beautiful graphics. It didn't age like other games did, like Perfect Dark, where, it's that kind of 2D stuff. So it still looks really good. The music is amazing, and it's still my favorite Paper Mario today. Although I have not beat Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, so that's up for grabs, but I think the earlier Paper Mario series did a really good job of being charming and fun, and was able to capture your attention, whereas I feel like the newer stuff is just kind of lackluster. It's not a secret that I'm a big fan of Pokemon, and Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2 is still a really fun game to play. More so, I like the minigames more than anything, so it's more so with friends. I really enjoy both of them very much, but if you're somebody who enjoys Pokemon at all, the battle mechanics and getting your way up to the Pokemon League is still a lot of fun as well, and I think that those games, although I don't think they've visually aged as well as Paper Mario, I think they are still extremely fun to play today. Another one on my list is the bad boy of the Nintendo 64, Conker's Bad Fur Day, notoriously known for their advertising of the game and giving out like condoms and beer and 18 plus, and this game has a lot of fun humor. Now the game is encapsulated in humor that was based off of references from like the early 2000s, so if you're kind of a younger viewer, this might not be the best game because you might not get all the references, but it's extremely hilarious. The platforming, it's aged a little bit poorly just because of the whole 3D controls with the one analog stick, but I still think you can have a lot of fun with it. It did get a port to the Xbox, and I think even after that it got put on the rare replay for the Xbox One, so if you don't want to play it on the N64, there are options. I will admit this one I did play very much myself, but 007 is still a really fun game, more so the multiplayer aspect of it, and if you can do some of the like cheats and mods, the game can get pretty funny, and so if you want to play like a multiplayer game on like a fun like party night or something and you want to whip out something retro, the 007 multiplayer games are pretty fun. And very last on my list, and it wouldn't be an N64 list without it, is the Mario parties. Mario Party 1 through 3, 1 notorious for needing to send out gloves because kids were burning holes in their freaking palms because of the joystick, but 2 I think is my favorite, but all 3 are extremely fun for party nights, cooperative play, couch co-op, local, sit on the couch, play with your friends. I miss that so much, but Mario Party, any of them, you really can't go wrong, but I would suggest 2 if you're only going to pick 1, but extremely fun games to play. Lots of mini games, lots of fun, friendship ruiners, 10 out of 10. I still enjoy collecting for the Nintendo 64 in 2024. I know it's a weird console. I know the graphics didn't carry over very well. It's definitely a console that if you're going to play it on a CRT TV, because that's really the way you're going to have to play it for the graphics to not be, too stretched out. But I enjoyed the console, and if you hate the controller, there's third-party stuff. I think Retro Fighters makes some really cool controllers. There's the Hori Pad, which you'll pay a ton of money for, but there are alternatives, and I know that there's emulators and things like that. I feel like for the Nintendo 64, personally, when it comes to emulators, it seems like one of the hardest consoles to emulate perfectly. I've seen things where it's like very blippy or like characters are missing their eyes. So personally, I really do like playing the Nintendo 64 on the Nintendo 64. If Nintendo ever did a mini console, which I'm sure they won't because they want their money through their subscription services, I would totally buy that. That would be so much fun to have a mini console of the Nintendo 64 because I truly enjoy collecting for it with all of the different fantastic colors, the Pikachu editions, the Toys R Us exclusives. It was such a fun time to be a gamer back when all of that was going out and all of these different options, and they just don't do that as much anymore. I mean, there are a few different versions of consoles, but I just feel like it just isn't the same as it used to be. But that was my thoughts of Nintendo 64 and the anniversary coming up, and just some of my memories, but also some fun facts. But let me know what you think of the Nintendo 64. Do you still collect for it? Do you have one in your collection? Let me know in the comments down below. But thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget, a pixelated world awaits. 64!